as you may or may not know, the Apple Studio display right now is the new Apple Studio display is about the only 5K display that you can get for your Mac outside of the LG Ultrafine display. And it is the only one that is designed and made by Apple. And plus, it has some nice additional features like the built in speaker system, the studio quality mics, and that 1080p wide angle camera, although of debatable quality at this point, that does center stage, that you can really get today. The thing about it, though, as we've talked about, is it is also kind of pricey. It comes in at, what, $1,600, about $1,600 US, which is honestly just a little bit less expensive than the now discontinued 5K 27-inch iMac, which essentially, for the most part, had basically the same display and then came with an entire Macintosh attached to it, right? So a lot of people are kind of questioning, and I think rightfully so, the pricing on this display. Still, it is a great display, and if you want and like all those features and you want a great 5K display with the build quality that Apple can deliver, the Studio display is it. But still, a lot of people are probably wondering, why can't I just take a 27-inch iMac and use that as my display? And back in the day, we could, because Apple had target display mode where you actually could hook up an old iMac, but they got rid of that feature for whatever reason. I guess they don't want people using iMacs as their display. But guess what? That didn't stop YouTuber Luke Miani. He actually came out with a really cool project this week, and it's over on YouTube. He did a video on it, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes at maccast.com. But he said, hey, there's got to be a way to take a 27-inch 5K iMac and turn that into a display. And he did figure it out, which is really, really cool. So I wanted to talk to you about it and see what you think about it. It's an interesting project. And basically what he did was he found a donor, in this case 2014 27-inch iMac, which was fully functional, found it online for about $600, which is a pretty good price. I think the display is not one for one with the current Apple Studio display in terms of specs, and I think later models, I want to say, of the 27-inch iMac had a little bit higher quality display, so if you can find a later version, it might even improve the quality a little bit. But hey, he started with this 2014 at $600. Basically then gutted the entire system except for the display, and then went online and found a display adapter board for about $179 US, threw that in there, added in a USB-C webcam to replace the web camera that was in there, so I think a 1080p webcam, and then ran all of that stuff and cabling through the RAM access door, which proved to be a convenient way to get things in there, and didn't have to do any soldering, any fancy stuff other than taping in some components. Obviously, getting the display apart or getting the iMac apart to just separate out all the components is a little bit tricky, but hey, they got good instructions over at iFixit, and you can get the iFixit kit to reseal up the display, because you do have to kind of get through the adhesive and stuff like that. But for all in at just over about $800, he basically built what amounts to an Apple Studio display, right? You still have the build quality of Apple with the iMac. It's, a little bit different shape, a little bit different style, but really from the front, other than, the chin at the bottom, it's essentially an Apple Studio display for about half the price. Which is really, really amazing. And plus, in his case, because he started with a fully functioning iMac, he could even probably resell some of the components like the logic board and the RAM and some of the other bits and pieces, and even recoup even more of that money. So his was fully functional. You could probably also start with, say, a 27-inch 5K iMac that has a working display but maybe a dead logic board, and get it even cheaper than the $600 that he started with. So I thought this was a really interesting and cool project. I'd be curious to know what you think about it. Is this something you'd be willing to maybe fire up and try, or are you more like me and just think, I'd rather just not have the hassle and find a really good 4K display that's in the price range that I'm looking for. Whatever you decide. Again, I think this was kind of a cool little project, and I wanted to point it out this week in case you missed it. And you can again find links to this YouTube video over at maccast.com in the show notes.